Welcome to Survival Mode Disrupted, the podcast for those who are done performing, done people pleasing, and done living life on autopilot. I'm your host, Letitia, the Survival Mode Disruptor, and this is where we create disruptive, unapologetic transformations for those who are ready to exit survival mode and reclaim their power. Every episode is your permission slip to burn the rule book, break the cycle, and finally build a life that feels like yours. So let's disrupt everything that's holding you back and start living life on your own terms. Welcome to Survival Mode Disrupted. This is your trigger warning. This podcast contains unfiltered conversations about trauma, abuse, and survival. Discretion is advised. This is not therapy or medical advice, just real people sharing real stories. So please take care of yourself and pause if you need to. If this conversation hits home, grab the book Survival Mode Exit Plan, your raw, unapologetic blueprint to break free. Available now by scanning the QR code or clicking the link in the comments. Hello, 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 and welcome back to another episode of Survival Mode Disrupted. I am your host, Letitia, the Survival Mode Disruptor, and today we have Dr. Kelly with us. Dr. Kelly, why don't you introduce yourself?
Hey guys, my name is Dr. Robb Kelly. I'm over in San Antonio, Texas. So as you can tell from my accent, I'm from Manchester, UK. Been over here for about 18 years, 14 in Dallas, and then over to San Antonio for 4 years. I run a multi-million-dollar business. We have 6 or 7 offices around the world. I do a lot of TV in America. Write a lot of books in America. I do huge podcasts and I advise to Harvard University's psych hospital, McLean's Hospital. And we deal with anything from drugs to anxiety, PTSD, depression, in and out survival mode. Anything to do with psych, we address.
It's great to have you here today. So let's kick it right off with how would you describe survival mode and how have you seen it show up?
But my survival mode was really prevalent because I was homeless for 14 months. After I lost everything, children, wife, cars, houses, medical license. And my survival mode that I would describe, first of all, was desperation. That was the first thing that hit me. Is, oh my God, oh my God. Now, the survival mode for me was when I got on the streets, when I had to live on the streets, it was scary at first. But then I grew up on council estates. I worked doors as a kid and I got used to it. So I think my survival mode is adapting to any situation that I find myself in. Like from there here to what I do today it's kind of humanly impossible. But when that survival mode kicks in, you'd be surprised how much I can take. And then the back end of that, of course, from childhood trauma is how long I would stay there in that survival mode and scared to move forward. So by being in that survival mode, it repatterns the brain and it repatterns neural pathways. And once we go into, it's called a basal ganglia, once we go into doing the things for a certain amount of time, it becomes a working part of the brain and people get stuck in it. So it's important that you address it and realize you're there, get some help, and you need to step away from it. Because what the survival mode is for me is it's my like semester at Harvard University. It's what I use today to as my greatest asset going forward. Like, listen, let me tell you about my mode over here that happened that you're going through now because I've been there, I know where I am.
Absolutely. What I found interesting being in this space, and for me, my interest in having these conversations came as a result of recognizing that I had been in survival mode for extended periods of time. And once I had that reconciliation, it was like, well, how did I not know? And I think the reason I didn't know is because we do not have enough conversations around the residual impact of trauma. Oftentimes, I see people have a traumatic event happen to them, and they are quite naive in thinking that things will automatically go back to normal. For me, one of the incidents that I had, I was stabbed by my first husband, and I really expected things to just magically fall into place. It took me about 12 years, though, to get my footing because I didn't have tools and I didn't have ways to rewrite the patterns that had become my norm while I was surviving. So, why do you think we don't have these conversations?
Well, first of all, it's classed as mental health. Nobody wants to talk about that.
Hmm.
Secondly, if we knew what was really going on and could fix it, we wouldn't need the pharmaceutical companies. So that there's lots of reasons why we don't have them conversations. And when I came over to America, I wanted to change that. I wanted to bring everything out. And what I found was this is by studying the amygdala, is everybody has childhood trauma. Now, it depending what kind of upbringing, sensitive brains, or stuff like that, some are more than others, but everybody has it and they don't recognize it. It's like I was in some patient's house 5, 6 years ago, and it was a $40 million house. $40 million house. You would have thought that everything was fantastic in there. And he's like, oh, we don't have trauma, blah, blah, blah. And I said to the kid, I said, hey, so mom and dad good? Yeah, it's brilliant. I look forward to Sunday. What do you mean look forward to Sunday? Well, I see my dad between 3 and 4 on Sunday. Okay, well, that's abandonment, first of all. And that's patterning your brain to take that further, that you're going to be a workaholic and ignore your children. But yeah, everybody has it. Every single person has it. But because it's classed as mental health, nobody wants to talk about it. If we only had the talk, one of the reasons I went headlong into addiction recovery, PTSD stuff, is because nobody knew. I went to my doctor. He said, I think you're an alcoholic. You know, he said, you're an alcoholic. I said, okay, what do I do? Well, I just stop drinking. Well, 1%, alcohol has 1% to do with alcoholism. Your upbringing kind of has 1% to do with the trauma they're going through. You've got to really look at what trauma is to each individual person. It could be anything from a parent or a caregiver or a friend or a teacher that said something. And I often say, if you're sat at home now and your relationships keep breaking up and you can't keep a job and stuff, I want to apologize you, but somebody's put that there. Somebody's put it in your mind that you're not capable of doing stuff. And it's the same with women stay in relationships and men sometimes, but the 80% women stay in relationships way too long, way too long than they should have, but they sit there because the uncomfortableness, the pain, the survival mechanism says if I step out of this, it might not work out. I'll be homeless or something. So you stick in that comfort zone relation, even though it's hurting you, because that's how the brain works. Always looking for comfort zones.
Hmm. And it creates comfort zones with what we know, right? So, like, I've had discussions with people who recognize they are in traumatic experiences and they may exit it for a small period of time, but they are craving the adrenaline rush that comes with being in fight and flight for long periods of time. And they then start seeking out what they know to be true. And you are absolutely right. A lot of reasons why people stay in situations is because they have told themselves a story about what it would look like to leave. I can speak from my own experience. I entered my abusive relationship at the age of 14. I was in a state where, what was going on in my home wasn't loving. I felt emotionally neglected. So I go into this relationship with this man who makes me feel wanted. And because I have been in that relationship for such a long period of time, I had never functioned as an independent adult.
Lost
So,
your identity.
pardon?
This is you lost your identity. This is the
Absolutely.
problem we have. So when ladies separate from husbands or boyfriend, they have no identity. They don't know who they are. And we see this with if there's a dysfunctional house where dad's drinking and, he comes home 3 or 4 times a week drunk, and there's a little child, a girl there between, I don't know, 4 and 10, and he comes home 4 times a week, and dad and mum get into a fist fight. Okay. Now, the next morning, as we know, in most households in England, you get up next morning, it's all forgotten about. Oh, I love you. Oh, I love you too, babe. Don't worry. And he goes out to work. What's that teaching the child? It's teaching the child that fist fights is love and arguments is love. So what that girl does when she leaves the house and she grows up, she attracts the same guy that will end up in arguments or fist fights, stuff like that, because she finds that comfortable. Now, if she meets the right guy that's kind to her, she'll self-sabotage that relationship and feel comfortable. So there was a girl in Manchester in 1968, 69, and she was a schoolgirl coming home from school, one pair of blue eyes. She got snatched at the side of the road. There was a huge man. Remember this? And they can't find her. So they pull back on manpower. 9 months later, a police car is following another car down a country road, and he has a broken signal light, indicator light. They pulled him over. Now, back in the day, the police asked one question when they pull you over: what's in the trunk? What's in the boot? And if you say yellow jacket, pair of boots, and you open it, there you go. Because there's no phones or anything back then. It's obviously your car. But this guy was a bit awkward, so they opened the back and there was a stolen screwdriver there. So now they're allowed to go back to their house, and sure enough, there were lawnmowers, drills, all stolen. And while they're looking around, they find this huge box in the corner. It's 4 foot high by 12 foot wide. And we said, we know you've got more stolen stuff in it. So we smashed the lock off and we opened the thing, and there was the girl that went missing 9 months ago. So she was alive, she was bruised and battered, took her every day, bathed, to restroom, food, sexual assault, all that stuff, and put back in the box for 9 months, guys. 9 months. So when they opened the box, there was a policewoman there. She leant over, she grabbed this girl's hand and she helped the girl step out the box. She took her police coat off and she wrapped it around the girl. What's the first thing the girl did? She got back in the box. That's what we're doing.
Mm-hmm.
How painful it is, it becomes a comfort zone for us. And we sit there, and this is carried through human beings to human beings. We're over in San Antonio, we have deer visiting us every day. We have like 10 deer, we feed them, it's all over the neighborhood. But a lesson for trauma and survival mode is this, that research. When a deer gets hit by a car but doesn't die, it does some amazing things. It'll lay still for a couple of seconds, then it will jump back to its feet. What it does next is miraculous. It will shake violently for about 3 or 4 seconds, and it'll run on. They've just shooken off all that trauma, dealt with right there and then, and gone. That deer may cross the same road tomorrow and get hit by the same car. Who knows? Human beings don't do that. We keep it down, we keep it down, we keep it down. Because especially English people, we don't tell our business to nobody. How many times have we told them as kids, like, what's said in this house stays in this house? My lies, my mum used to tell to people, calling, oh yes, we live in their private estate. We live on a frigging council estate. And a bad one at that. A real couple of race course. Really bad. So it's crazy how this works out.
Mm-hmm. I definitely think aspects of our trauma is conditioned because, as we know, trauma can be passed on generation to generation. And one of the things that I've talked about quite often on this podcast is I believe that there are three phases to accident survival mode: self-awareness, reprogramming, and then a sense of reinvention. How would you describe that first step, the awareness? Like what do you think is required in order for us to first of all recognize that we are in a state of survival mode, and then recognize it enough to want to make a change?
Somebody will tell you, a therapist, a good one, don't go to anyone's, but they'll tell you the signs to look for. If you're restless all the time, if you're older and your relationships are not working, if your businesses are failing, if you're shaking your leg all the time when you sit down, there's facial expressions, there's staring into space, there's all this stuff that adds up to something being wrong, especially when you communicate with somebody else to find out severe, we don't have many friends. So the basis is uncover, discover, discover. Uncover what's going on. If this here, if your life here is not working out for you, it goes straight back to you. So with somebody else, you can't do it on your own. If somebody else drag that subconscious stuff out, we need to uncover what it is in your subconscious brain. Because that's why we have 9D therapy and various parts of it. Pull stuff through people out into the conscious. Uncover, discover what it's about, and discard, get rid of it as soon as you can. And by doing this, and probably 100 traumas that you've been through and continue to go through, but what we need to start doing, we need to start shaking it out as society. We need to start talking to people. I worked the doors with Tisha back in the day in Manchester. I was a big bodybuilding, steroid freak who could fight as well. Imagine me turn around to the door the next week, something? I did a bit of handling screen. You could have slapped me across the face so quick. And that was the era I grew up in. It's getting a little bit better now, but we're on the warpath there for especially men and women to step forward and go, something, I need to talk to somebody, there's something going on here. Everybody can be successful. Everybody can earn $1 million. Everybody can get the kids back. Everybody can do anything they want to do. Quantum physics backs the neuroscience up in this. But the reason why we don't is because of that mode we're in. And when the kids, it's like, what do you want to be, Johnny? I'm a solicitor. What about you, Benny? Footballer. Them dreams are kicked out of us by our family and friends. You see, babies are born with two fears. Fear of falling and the fear of loud noises. That's it. The rest of them are man-made. So we eventually find ourselves for all this stuff here. This is a true story that might explain this better. Me and my brother stood on the kitchen table. We're about 9 or 10 or 11. We're not supposed to be stood on the kitchen table when my mum walks. And she says to both of us, get down off that table, you stupid idiot. Get down before your dad comes in. That's how she says it. My brother jumps down and I freeze. Why do I freeze? Because people who suffer from past trauma hear things different. Well, I heard, get out of that table, you stupid idiot. Just on and on and on. So me and my brother went through exactly the same thing. He's okay. I suffered from traumatic trauma and PTSD and everything from I was molested by my priest. Went home and told my mom, she hit me with a wooden shoe, skull, hit me with it, and I was sent up the stairs. There was all stuff like that I had to deal with. My mom and dad, every Friday, and you'll get this, Americans like, well, when they wanted to go to the pub. So every Friday they would drop us off at their friends. And then mom and dad would go to the pub and they'd go home late, sleep in, and pick us up the next day, every Friday. What they didn't know, I guess, and what I thought was natural, is as soon, it was like my mom and dad there and their friends, so like 4 or 5 adults there. What I didn't know is when they pulled out the driveway, we started the game, the run around naked game, and the adults would catch us and tickle us. I didn't know that was wrong. But when I grew up, I would take my top off, even when I was bodybuilding. And the relationship suffered because I hate people seeing me with my clothes on. And that went on for like 20 years. Until finally, about 10 years ago, I had a break. Because I've not dealt with this, and he took me into what's called the Meadows. It's like a psychiatric hospital. And I had to fix myself. I had to go back to fix myself with all the tools they give me and find out that somatic experience, which is, realizing what the body's doing before trauma hits you. Because I felt I had my shit together. But this is the stuff you need to check in with yourself every single day. What I found was interesting in the teachers when I had a checklist, like circle 5 feelings today, not thoughts, feelings, happy, sad, and I'd circle 5 of them, and that gave me a good idea of where I was psychologically and mentally. And when I added some somatic experience when I come out of there, I was so amazed at somatic experience that I became a certified somatic experience therapist. You've got to listen to your body. The body will tell you a week, 2 weeks before when it all goes wrong. You're trying to warn you, like the gut feeling. Everyone thinks the gut feeling is a joke. The gut feeling goes right back to the tribal days. When somebody in the tribe would get a gut feeling that there was danger there or something was happening, the tribe then got ready to fight or they flee. That's still true today. We've got to learn to listen to.
Hmm. And so, in speaking about listening to our bodies, what are some of the things that we should be paying attention to other than our gut feeling? Because I feel like people don't even recognize when their body is telling them stuff.
There's a few things, but the most interesting thing that I we found out is there's four chemicals in the brain, four neurotransmitters in the brain that when all four are attended, you're happy. Okay, so we got dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin, and endorphins. They're the four chemicals. Out of the two best ones are serotonin and dopamine, which we all know. Now, where are they created? Well, most people said in the brain. The others, it creates in the gut. So show me somebody with gut issues. I'll show you someone with addiction or depression because we're not listening. We're not lack of information, lack of knowledge. It is what's killing people today. You need to know there's all sorts of things. If you feel off, if you feel sad, if you're hyper, if your stomach hurts, if all these things are telling you the body's screaming out, going, "Hey, I'm gonna say something wrong here." Now, in America, 90% of the food is not real. It's plastic food, we call it really. Not real. It's full of red color, yellow color, it's full of seed oils, like sunflower oil, we should not be touching. All the oils that are around are rancid oils. It doesn't but the damage. So what happens? And there's loads of food that's not real food. We have ice cream around here. You can't call it ice cream because there's so many chemicals in it. There's no cream in there. It's
Hmm.
easy. But what's happened to America as a whole is it got sicker and sicker. So we went in and looked around to see what it was, and it's this. My dad had becomes like heart problems. So it was horrible. So when I left the house and girlfriend, years later, I started having heart problems, but instances didn't happen. That's happened. So I think I put it up like that. Well, let's go back and look. Let's America. Everything we eat is not used in the source that it's taken. It's methylated into a source that we can use for energy and all that stuff. Okay. So if I'm eating something that's not real food, or 90% isn't real food, then I can't methylate a certain protein or food. Let's say it's only or fake bean, whatever. I can't methylate that. So if I can't methylate it, there becomes a deficiency. The deficiency causes the heart problems. So because I'm on the same kind of diet food that when I left home, I'm impressing my girlfriend. My dad just make beans and so. That's her speciality. I don't know. I can't methylate beans, so I get heart problems.
Hmm.
And people want to, and it's not true. The food industry gets us sick, and the pharmaceutical companies keep us sick.
Hmm.
And we wonder why we're stuck in survival mode most of the time. It's like our body's going, "What's going on? What's going on? I'm not getting this. I'm not getting that. Please, what are you doing? What are you doing?" And we're banging, fries and fast food away and bread that's not real bread and all sorts of food in the supermarket, especially the inside of the supermarket, not on the outside, but the inside. It's plastic food, and our body eventually goes, "I can't do this anymore." And then the cancers come in, the heart problems, the lung. It's all, well, 90% is flu, 10% is oxygen that we don't get. Every disease in the human body, including cancers and growths, start in a hypoxic area below, where there's no oxygen. They only breathe 45% volume. Imagine every morning doing 20 exaggerated breaths in and out, filling the body with oxygen. Can you imagine? Just a couple of things, man. The subconscious brain works into most hypoxic situations. Body's been in rest between 2 and 5 and almost completely good sleep pattern. Wakes up, there's no oxygen. The reason no one's woke up like no oxygen. Subconscious brain, the guy that wants to kill us and make it look like an accident, gets us wrong. Got to get that away with the breath work and ignite the conscious brain. With the conscious brain, you have a clear mind for 24 hours. It's not a 12-step thing. So we found out that every 24 hours, a couple of parts of the brain is that's where 24 hours day comes. If
Hmm.
you're not doing this on a daily basis, you're not living to your potential. And what is showing that?
Absolute shame. And so many are falling by the wayside as a result, right? So as I've been talking to people, I've heard a lot of alternatives to talk therapy to help with trauma. Can you outline a few of them?
100%. So, uh, I'm a psychologist, PhD, and a behavioral science PhD. So I'm a double PhD. And talk therapy used to be good until we found out that trauma is not a plane crash, it's not a car crash, it's not a divorce, it goes way deeper than that. So software that's been developed and pushed by us, it's called 9D, that's 9D breathwork therapy. And basically what it is, today's childhood trauma, today's all the stuff that's going on, depression, addiction, outside, all that stuff will get cured here. What it is, you put headphones on and a mask, you count when the seats blacked out, and you get the main voice with music in the background, lifting music and the 9 dimensional messages to reset and remap the brain. That's one of the things we do. The other one is called somatic experience, which we just got through, and the last one is NLP, neural programming. Them three alone change patterns, change the brain. So we wanted to further the teachings, like how can we change the family inherent of the imprinted genes? And we find imprinted genes on depression, on alcoholism, on addiction. It's even before we're born, people we get them imprinted genes that are passed on. Okay. So how do we change that? Well, everything's got to be changed around us. So what we find is the mind is energy. Okay. It can't see it, touch it, feel it, mind, and it sits inside the brain. Hence the saying, mind over matter.
Hmm.
When the mind, our energy, contacts or connects with another power, that's like an energy source, and you change and read out the neural pathways in their heads, we have medical, scientific reports to say the imaging. You're not the same person as you used to. And that's what led we're at. You know, everyone's here, we're here. And the reason why we're here is I was angry. But I was angry that nobody could tell me. I was angry that I didn't know about child abuse. I didn't know about it. I was angry that nobody's doing this. And one of the main reasons, and the reason we don't talk about it, is there's no money in getting a person well.
Hmm.
What? It doesn't make sense. You're not in the system. You're not making money. The trillionaires that are living on the board, you know, some pharmaceutical company, they're not interested in us. So I realized that, Rob, nobody's coming to the door for you. Nobody's coming offering that $1 million job or offering that a way out from that disease. Nobody's coming. So we want to be the ones that come in. And we built and we built and we hired the best scientific minds and we trialed and tested everything that we talk about today. And we're proud to be the leaders in the industry because we're sick and tired of watching people die through lack of knowledge. If you
Hmm.
only had the knowledge, who knew that two neurochemicals that are the best for in the stomach? Who knew? Nobody knows that. So if you're eating
First I'm
McDonald's
hearing it.
every single day, it's better in the UK, by the way. I think
Hmm.
McDonald's fries in the UK has 3 or 4 ingredients. There's 22 ingredients in them. In actual fact, you could buy a hamburger, stick it in a cupboard, not a fridge, a cupboard, and you could go back to it a year later, nothing wrong.
Hmm.
That's what we eat over here. It's crazy. It's very expensive to eat healthy.
Healthy.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
You know,
that's all by design.
we did a live thing on TV about a month ago, and it was to show what are on our shelves. And we walked in live, going out live to like I don't know how many thousands of people. And there's a bar here, Sunshine something, very popular, green and yellow, and it had 9 grams of protein and 0 fat. And I turned to the crew and I said, "Oh yeah, that's the one you want." And I said, "Really? Of course, it's healthy for us. I might buy some before I go." I took it off the shelf and I turned it round. There was 22 ingredients in it, and the first ingredient was canola, followed by sunflower, followed by GMO. No wonder there's no calories in it. It's not.
I've enjoyed this conversation, Dr. Kelly. So tell us a little bit more about you, what you do, how we can connect with you.
So anything to do with psych or depression or anything to do with that, we fix. There's no cure for alcoholism, but we can arrest it, no problems. But we can cure everything else because we're so good at what we do, not bragging, but we just, I died twice on the streets of Manchester, guys. When you do something like that, you want to really find out the answers and tell the truth.
Mhm.
So if you're listening, not watching, spell my name with 2 B's, ROBBKELLY.com. is the website. We're on all social media. Dr. Robb Kelly in any search engine around the world, and I'll come up. And yeah, if you know anything for you, join our chat, visit our website, say hi. And I think for this show, seems that you're a freaking superstar. And I love it, right?
Thank you.
Okay, it's one of my books here. It's called Daddy, Daddy, Please Stop Drinking. That's me wasted out of my face doing visits in the child. She was
Hmm.
4 there. They taken off me at the age of 3. I had a home visit. I was loud. I'll give you if you message this and say you saw the shows on the show, I'll send 5 books out to you. I'll pay for it myself. I'll pay for shipping and everything. But yeah, let's get something out of this, guys.
Yes, absolutely. And thank you so much. So before we wrap it up, one key takeaway for the listeners.
Key takeaways, and it's being a researcher. Just because your doctor tells you something doesn't make it true. Medical doctors are not gods. Do your research, look at what you're eating, make sure you get 20-minute exercise every day, be happy, compliment 3 people. And if you're stuck in a council flat, somebody, it's so good I could talk to anyone this person. I was like, council flat? So if you're staying in a council flat and the husband's a no good whatever, and he's left, you've got 2 kids there in 1 bedroom apartment, this is a crossroads, man. It's a crossroads. Because if I know something of my 64 years of being on this earth, I know that this is not it for you guys. This is a crossroads. I love crossroads when you start to rebuild. Find your identity, proud of who you are, stop giving a shit what people think about you, and
Hmm.
start living life. Come on, baby, that's what I'm talking about.
Thank you, Dr. Kelly. Boom. Listen, guys, the reason why we're having these conversations is because they are absolutely not talked about enough. And Dr. Kelly came and gave us the raw deal. And I just, first of all, thank you for your time. Listeners, thank you for catching another episode. And I'm going to remind you once again, you were not built to break, but you damn sure were not just built to survive. Disrupt the cycle, reclaim your life, and thrive on your own terms. And I will see you next.